tragically lost their lives 24 years ago today during the heinous September 11th attacks. So, again, on behalf of myself and everybody here at Our Time Press, I hope the respective families who did lose loved ones, I hope you guys are healing. You guys are in our thoughts. And I just want to just tip my hat, and I felt like it was the right thing to just acknowledge and just tip my hat to those who have lost loved ones during those that tragic day 24 years ago in Manhattan. So, with that being said, we're gonna get into sports now. Considering the fact that football just kicked off, you know, as I was coming in here, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna get right into it as far as football and stuff like that. But on my way here, I read something that just really ticked me off. So I gotta go. I'm gonna go jump into that as far as Yankees baseball goes. So there's a report that Anthony Volpe has been playing with a small tear of a small tear of the labrum. Now, for those who are not really familiar with the human body, don't worry, I'm not a body expert either, but I think that injury is right here, and I think it pretty much connects the shoulder capsule. And what it is the mobility to be able to swing and throw. And I think in his case, I think it's the non-throwing shoulder, but it's still the shoulder. As if you're ultimately right-handed batter, you get a lot of that swing and that tear coming from this end, swinging like this. And then obviously, when you're a right-handed batter, you catch with the glove side is this hand, so you have that mobility going here and there. Why was he even playing? You know, for the most part, and this is probably about the fourth rant I've gone on with Aaron Boone since we launched this show, and it just this is the kind of things that just really piss me off, and I think it really gets under the skin of prototypical Yankee fans because we want to, at first, just from the outside looking in, you're like, okay, geez, this guy, you would think couple of years in the farm system, close to 3 years of, professional play and whatnot. Like, you would think eventually it's going to click, right? You know, you have your sophomore jinx and you sort of catapult into that third year. But it just seemed like for some reason it just wasn't clicking. And I remember a play early, I want to say in the beginning of like May, they played a game where he was going after a fly ball and he landed on his shoulder and he came up in pain. So I'm not sure if that play right there was stemming from the current injury that we have that Volpe is going through right now. I'm under the impression that that's exactly what it is. But you know, the Yankees are in a situation where you know they can't really relax. It almost seems like from a daily basis they can be one up in the wild card as far as the top wild card, and then if they lose two in a row, and then you got Boston breathing down our necks, they can go from being the first top tier wild card to the last wild card, and ultimately maybe even out the wild card picture. So I think I get it. Aaron Boone, obviously at this point, he's very high on Volpe, and for a guy who's young and still trying to get his feet wet in the major leagues, and you have a manager who's always having your back and who's always giving you that moral support. That's good and dandy, but this is the playoff time. September is when you go. The old saying where you turn from a boy, where you separate the men from the boys, and in this case, you can't really worry about hurt feelings. That pretty much has to go out the window. So, you know, from the report that I read, there was an MRI conducted in May, and the Yankees' belief was this was an old injury and that he could play through it. But within the course of the season, he has re-aggravated it a few times this year. Most recently, this past weekend, and he did receive a cortisone shot. He had a scheduled day off last night, and obviously with the cortisone shot, you're gonna give that a significant time to see how he responds to that. So we're looking, right now as far as his availability to be on a day to day basis. But I'm just, at this point, before the season started, I already had Aaron Boone 1 foot out, but now it's like it's sort of irresponsible, and I get it. Throughout the course of the season, they didn't have the bench depth that they had to give Volpe rest time here and there, but it's like now you do. From my recollection, I do believe Ahmed Rosario has some experience at short. I think he came up as a shortstop from the Mets. I'm not sure. I have to look that up, but I definitely think he did play some sort of infield during his Major League Baseball service. I want to say he did come up as a shortstop um, for the Mets, and then obviously you have Jose Caballero. So obviously you're seeing no production. He has um, 218 batting average. Now, again, it's easy to get wild and deflect that with the 19 home runs and the 70 RBIs. That's cool and dandy, but you can't do things like this. You just can't do things like this. Um, you have a combination of Caballero and Rosario, and listen, have those guys play it out, and whoever does the most production on the offensive and defensive side, then that's who gets the most playing time until Volpe is right, because clearly he's not right. And aside from the Chicago series, I think he had like a 8 for 40 stretch with at bats, and that's just dreadful. But what does Boone do? He just keeps putting his ass out there every day. And again, these bats, these at bats are so crucial, especially during this 12-game stretch that the Yankees are currently in the middle of. Right now, they are 4-4. They won 2 out of 3 in Houston. They won 2 out of 3 in against the Toronto Blue Jays to cut that league. I think they're now 3, because if you calculate that, they're really 4 games back, because the Toronto Blue Jays have won the season series against the Yankees. So ultimately, you can count that as an extra game. And they the first 2 games to the Tigers, and they pretty much just got their ass kicked within the past 2 days. I think the night before was 12-2. I think yesterday was 11-2, and it just been a bad performance uh, for the Yankees and whatnot. But this news about Anthony Volpe, it's very significant, and I need to know why. I need to know. Listen, do you have players? And shout out to Volpe. He didn't make any excuses. He went out there, and he had that New York grit, which any New York sport fans could appreciate. But at the end of the day, if you're costing us games, if you're costing us moments that could pretty much decide a game, you got to be able to make that switch, no matter how much you're in love with a player. Because I remember that. I remember that game, and I remember once he went down and clutched it. I don't know. I don't know why, but it gave me. I remember the Yankees when they were in Toronto back in their old stadium, I believe, 2005, and Derek Jeter slid to third base, and he ultimately separated his shoulder, and I think he missed a good chunk of that season. All the air was just taken out of me during that year, and the way Volpe clutched his shoulder during that diving play at shortstop, it was sort of reminiscent of that Derek Jeter play in 2005. So I just I got to see ultimately I ultimately got to see the press conference. There's usually a pre-show that they have where I'm pretty sure with this news breaking out, there's going to be questions regarding this injury and why he continued to play Volpe. Again, I get it. As far as the experience, the youth, Volpe got it, but at the end of the day, he's not 100%. And there's been stretches in moments where it's second and third and nobody out and we're down by one and he'll strike out. There was an at bat the day before yesterday, crucial at bat where he bunted and it turned out to be a fly ball. And you have first and second, you're able to execute a bunt or get a base hit. You obviously get your team momentum and put a run on the board. But a bunt like that, especially with the way the Yankees bats have been up and down all year long, that's just a very crucial point of the game, and it just took. Those are momentum killers, and you can't keep putting a guy out there who's clearly not 100%. If it was a sore ankle or something, not so significant, but this is from a technicality standpoint, this is a torn labrum that's going to probably require maybe successful rehab, more than likely surgery. Depending on obviously how he responds to the cortisone shot. But again, this is just a bonehead move by Boone to just keep throwing him out there when the Yankees need to collect wins. Especially through this playoff run. So, and again, you know, we can't really sit there and just blame Boone for all the Yankees miscues and their up and down season. Listen, the Yankees have been a roller coaster all year long. They have games where they look promising, and it's like, okay, well, maybe we don't need Soto, or maybe we can be okay, without Cole and have a long stretch. And then there's like games like yesterday where it's like, what am I watching? And it almost looks like, I hate to say it, and not to add insult to injury, but it almost looks like a Pop Warner team at times. I just get so like the past. I haven't been stressed out this much. Well, I'm probably lying, but right now I'm in my feelings and I'm in the moment. But these two games have been very, very dreadful to watch. I mean, once they went up 6-1, I just turned the damn TV off. I think I probably tune into some pro wrestling for those guys. For everybody that knows, I'm a big pro wrestling guy, so I just couldn't take it no more because it was almost like self abuse at that point. But if the Yankees are to get to where they want to get to, they have to find a part-time solution when it comes to shortstop, whether that be Caballero, whether that be Ahmed Rosario. My guess is it'll probably be Caballero moving forward until they find out how Volpe responds to the cortisone shots, and they'll probably insert Rosario against left-handed pitchers, which he has great numbers historically against left-handed pitchers. So I'm guessing that's going to be those moves making forward. But again, you can't just blame Volpe. The Yankees' offense in its entirety has just been lackadaisical for the most part. But again, you can point out that. But the key thing for the Yankees, up and down, has been their bullpen. Their bullpen has been nothing short of miraculous. In fact, the Yankees. Whose phone is that? Yeah, there it is. Sorry about that. So the Yankees ERA, as far as the second half goes, is 5.37, which is this is the second half ERA with the bullpen collectively 5.37 ERA, which is the fourth lowest mark in baseball. And who pays dividends to that? Well, you got to look at a guy like Mark Leiter. Mark Leiter has an ERA of 5.32. Devin Williams, who I call low left Dev, I labeled him as low left Dev because it seems like he excels only when in low leverage situations. So you got Devin Williams with a 5.50 ERA. You got Camille Duvall with a 6.82 ERA. So I mean, you look at those numbers and it's like that's a big chunk of your bullpen. And these are pieces that were supposed to be something beneficiary when it comes to the Yankees bullpen. Obviously you can't throw Luke Weaver out there every day. You can't throw Fernando Cruz out there every day, especially with him coming back from injury. And obviously, you can't throw David Bednar, every day. So Boone, first of all, these guys got to get it together, and there's got to be a culmination. You know, depending on what the starting rotation is able to provide for them, whether it's 5 innings, whether it's 6 innings, but there's got to be a combination of players who are reliable and just simply just have to play better. In order to get to the bridge, of a Weaver, of a Duval. Well, yeah, Weaver, Cruz. Because moving forward, and I'm not gonna sit here and contradict myself from what I said 3 weeks ago here on the podcast, but I did have Duval playing a pivotal point. As far as the Yankees bullpen, preferably the eighth inning guy, which would be the setup guy to Bednar. But obviously, it seems like Duval hasn't gotten quite acquainted to this new role. Remember, this guy had I think it was a 2.86 ERA when he was a closer for the San Francisco Giants. So again, I think from a mental aspect, it's just very. I want to say I guess it's a challenge. It's a challenge for the most part to have pitchers who know that they're the guy to get the final 3 outs, as opposed to having a mindset where it's like, okay, well, maybe I'll be used for an inning, maybe I'll be used for 4 outs, maybe I'll be used for 2 innings. So, you know, if you haven't seen what Ryan Hensley from the Mets have done and Camilo Duvall have done, it's pretty much so similar. Both of them were just lights out for their respective team. Hensley with the Cardinals and Duvall with the Giants, and they just been dreadful since they joined their respective new teams with the Mets and Yankees. So again, the Yankees bullpen definitely got to get it together. You heard the numbers: 5.37 ERA collectively since the second half of the season. It's definitely not going to get it done, especially when you're probably more than likely, depending on where they sit at, you're probably going to run into two teams. Eventually, you're going to probably, the way you set up now, it'll probably be a wild card matchup series with the Red Sox, or if they find a way to grab the division from the Toronto Blue Jays, who seem to be going in a minor skid right now, dealing with the Houston Astros the past couple of days. But again, the Yankees have not been able to capitalize on that, losing the first 2 games to the Detroit Tigers. So Boone has to find a I'm going to say this is a full time, but he has to find a new full time guy that he can trust at shortstop. Obviously, you can mix and match as far as pitching matchups, whether they throw a lefty out there as opposed to a right handed pitcher. Obviously, the righties you would put in Caballero. I would automatically assume that, and then for the left handed pitchers, you could put up Rosario, who has good numbers against left-handed pitchers. So yeah, Yankees just bullpen has to get it together. We can't have no more of this yay and nay when it comes to their offense. Right now they seem like they're going that roller coaster is going down once again. Trent Grisham is going through a little stretch since that huge home run he had against Houston. John Carlos Stanton, I think they announced yesterday is 2 for his last 22, something like that. Those 2 being home runs, granted, but you need to get him hot too, because the fact of the matter is Aaron Judge is not 100% healthy. He's not. Normally around these times, we'll see that hot 9 home run monthly surge that he goes on, but we haven't seen that. We've seen glimpses of it, where it's like, okay, maybe this is happening. Maybe this is a game that catapults him and ultimately the Yankees season, as far as whether they'll be able to go on a long playoff strong. But listen, I said it on the probably one of the very first episodes of this podcast, and I can be a man of my word. I did have the Yankees and the Mets in the World Series this year, but do I think the Yankees are a World Series team? I do not. I do not. Obviously, the pitching has been better than I thought. I did not think despite his good year last year, I did not think Rodon was gonna be this good. 16. I think he's tied for the Major League lead with Max Fried with 16 wins. Obviously, Fried was the biggest signing of the offseason from us. Being the ace for the Atlanta Braves for those years that he was there with Atlanta, and obviously the loss of Cole looms large. And then we had Clark Schmidt go down, and we probably won't see him until the 2027 season. So, I give it to Yankees management as far as being able to conduct a rotation that's put us in this predicament where we can even talk about playoffs. Because right now it's been a crap hole, for all summer it seems like, So even when they had that 6 or 7 game winning streak recently, I was like, okay, like could it be? Could it be? But then in the back of my mind, it's just like, I gotta like step into reality and be like, well, listen, there's a reason why they lost 6 or 7 straight. I think they lost 5 in a row twice this year. So you just don't know what you're gonna get from this Yankee team. Again, they gotta play a lot better come playoff time. There's some games where they just look, the offense just look out of it. You get great production from the rotation. They've gotten pretty good production from the rotation. I want to say the past 2 or 3 turnarounds within the rotation. And obviously, you're not gonna have a starting pitcher that's gonna give you 6 innings and 0 runs. Obviously, if you looked at Rodon's start yesterday, for the most part during the year, Rodon's fastball topped in about maybe 96, 97 miles per hour. For some reason, last night it was 94, 95. And, I hear people saying, man, it's only 3 mile per hour. Listen, when you got a guy that throws a fastball and the fastball has movement to it, those 3 miles per hour is a big difference. And I think anybody that, whether they, play high school baseball or college baseball will tell you that's a big difference. And, the two-seamer is a big part of his arsenal along with his breaking pitches. So I'm hoping it's not an injury because it just seems like now these injuries are coming out of nowhere with the Yankees. But you have those starts where you may not feel as sharp, but you still got to go out there and do your job, and that's something that I can commend Rodon and anybody who has those fatigue moments. Listen, you know, starting pitchers are projected to start what, 25, 30 starts a year. For them, and considering Rodon's health history, he's been pretty healthy for the most part. And truth be told, there's been times where he's been our ace pitcher. There was a time where Freed was dealing with that blister, and it was like 2 or 3 starts where he just did not look like the Max Freed, to start the season. Now, you say 3 some odd starts later, he starts getting back into the thick of things as far as getting touched for his pitches and stuff like that. It appears that he is back to the Max Fried of old, at least the Max Fried we saw towards the beginning of the season. So, again, the Yankees definitely need to get it together. Duvall, Williams, Leiter have been a crucial part of the Yankees bullpen woes throughout the entire year. It's been a crap show all year for this bullpen, and the moves that they made were supposed to sort of subsidize what's been going on with this team as far as their bullpen, and I can't tell whether it got slightly better or significantly worse. I guess only time will tell as far as whether the Yankees appear to be towards the end of the month. But again, it's it hasn't been a good couple of days being a Yankee fan. Luckily, Houston has done us a favor and they beat up on the Blue Jays a little bit, and we remain 3.5 games back of the American League East Division going into tonight's finale against the Tigers. For those who are going to the game tonight, I advise you to get there early. Considering the fact that it is September 11th, President Trump is scheduled to be in attendance for that game. So if you're not lining up there now or lining up an hour before we got on the air, it might be a long way for you to get into the stadium. So for those who are going, have fun. And most importantly, be safe. And yeah, so we'll see if the Yankees are able to salvage the three-game series against Detroit as they prepare for a huge weekend series against the Boston Red Sox. Um, the Mets, I just, what bothered me about the Mets, and this is coming from a Yankee fan. I felt going into this year they were significantly better than the Yankees. I felt like, the pitching obviously was in question, but I felt like if the pitchers were able to you know, provide mediocre starts, I felt like with the addition of Soto and, the returning Pete Alonso, and then you got Francisco Lindor, who normally, historically speaking, has been a better player in the second half, if you follow his career. And again, they're so similar to the Yankees, where it's like, once they had that 7 game winning streak, it looked like, okay, wow, this could be, this is a World Series team. This is a World Series team. But if you subtract that 7 game winning streak that they had early in the year, they pretty much been a top 5 worst team in the league, if you ask me. And again, injuries is a part of the game. We know that, and for the most part, they haven't been healthy when it comes to the starting rotation. But again, I still feel like they have enough offense to get through this. Obviously, it's a tough stretch. They're getting used and abused by the Phillies, just like the Yankees have with the Tigers the past couple of days. And I'll tell you one thing, man. If the Mets, and I hope not, because that would just pretty much deteriorate my World Series pick as far as the National League goes. But if the Mets do not make the World Series, I think it's safe to say that Carlos Mendoza is job should be on the hot seat. Again, you don't want to predict bad or wish bad upon anybody's job title. I wouldn't want anybody to do that to me in this show. But again, when you're a New York sports fan, I think the media pays dividends, and obviously the strong and passionate fan base. We expect winners, especially if you're coming with the big name and the big contract. I think any New York sports fans would tell you that's just pretty much what it is. So I I just I just don't understand why it's so similar how both the Mets and the Yankees are as far as how their season has gone. They both had similar droughts. They both had similar success as far as looking promising and just looking downright dreadful throughout the course of the season. It's almost eerie at this point to see how similar they've been throughout the course of the year. But again, the Mets right now, I think they hold one of the wild card spots. I think they do lead the wild card spots. I think their lead has shrunk down to 2, if I'm not mistaken. Quote me if I'm wrong, guys. But I know they had a little bit of a longer lead as far as the wild card goes. Obviously, with the few losses that they have, that lead has shrunk. They're about 8.5 games behind the Phillies for the National League East. So I think it's safe to say that now that we're in the middle of September, that we can pretty much put a bow on the National League East goes. And again, I just they got to figure out something. They just got to figure out something. It doesn't make sense, as far as how potent this offense is on paper and how they can appear sometimes in reality in certain games like that. You got Nimble who is swinging a hot bat, here and there. Last week or the week before, Soto had that stretch where it's like, okay, well, this is the guy. This is the reason why we signed this guy to a 15-year, $760 million contract. Pete Alonso, for the most part, has been godsend, considering the fact that he seemed like he was 1 foot out the door from leaving the Mets, but ultimately the Mets made the right decision. You bring in a homegrown guy to be here. We'll see whether it's the foreseeable future. I do believe that 3-year deal has an opt out after this year, so we'll see how that goes. But again, there's still time, and you don't want to always put that as an excuse. And I do not intend to do that on a week. But although there's time, the time will eventually run out. And you hope for the Yankees and Mets fans out there, it doesn't run out on them. But right now, both of them they're not playoff teams right now. They're not playoff teams right now, and I think the scariest part that you can have is them to excel the way they excel towards the end of the season. Let's say they go on let's say they go 10-2 on a 12-game stretch, and it gets fans like me hoping like, okay, well, this could happen. Hashtag World Series, Subway World Series back on, and then next they just crap the bed comes the playoffs. So I just hope that's not it, because if the Mets and the Yankees have abysmal playoff performance, you gotta think the fan base and not only the organization is gonna strive for change, because the moves that these teams made were to prepare themselves to meet each other for the World Series. If you really look at these moves, obviously, the Mets didn't get the top tier pitching that they thought they were going to get. Obviously, Manaea has missed a good chunk of the season. Frankie Montas, who was one of their signings during the offseason, he is, I think today or yesterday, he underwent Tommy John surgery, so he will not be. That will probably conclude his small tenure with the New York Mets organization. And he probably won't be back more than likely, he won't be back until the 2027 regular season. So, again, we just hope at this point that they can get it together. To me, for both teams tonight in particular, they must win games just to get up, get off the schneid of losing games and whatnot, and just being able to salvage a 3-game set, and just being able to just go with a fresh side and hopefully play better. But again, crucial games, especially for the Yankees, when it comes to them salvaging the 3-game set and against the Detroit Tigers, because as we know, and I hate to say it coming out of my mouth, but the Red Sox have pretty much owned the damn Yankees all year. I think they've won 10 straight games against the Yankees, and again, and I'm pretty sure I've said this on a past episode. The prototypical real Yankee fan, they know that wins and losses come. It's a 162 game season, but it just stinks 5 times, 10, 20 times worse when we lose to those guys. When we lose to the Red Sox, it's just how it is. It's just how it is, So yeah, hopefully the Yankees are able to salvage the season. They're throwing their 24-year-old right-hander Cam Slittler out on the mound today. So hopefully Slittler can provide them with some good innings, because the Yankees bullpen has been abused within the past 2 nights. So, hopefully, and again, it's a tough job to do, because though you got some glorified hitters on that other side. You got Kerry Carpenter, you got Spencer Torkelson, you got Riley Green, Gleyber Torres has had a bounce back season from last year and his first year in Detroit. It was good to see Gleyber back, in Yankee Stadium. Obviously, this is series mark the first time he has returned to Yankee Stadium since he signed a free agent deal um, with the Detroit Tigers. And the one thing that I liked about Torres before I put a ball in this segment, is that he acknowledged that there were times where he just wasn't good, and the fans he expects better of himself, and the fans deserve better. But he ultimately, you could tell within his 7 seasons, in pinstripes, he really enjoyed playing here. You know, you obviously had that monster year that he had in 2019, where he had the breakout season, hitting 38 home runs, I believe. So it was nice to see him. It's still a little weird to see former Yankees and even current Yankees sport the beard and stuff like that. But yeah. So again, we'll see what happens within the week. Hopefully, uh, next week I'll have something positive to say about Aaron Boone. But this news that just came out before we got on the air, it was just ridiculous because again, torn labrums, those are you got to put that in the of obliques and hamstrings. It is an injury that can get worse. And obviously, there's been several pitches where it's just straight fastballs right down the middle, and he's just not catching. You know, the prototypical batter. Listen, you throw a Major League Baseball, a nice looking fastball, over the plate, left to lefties, down and in, right in their wheelhouse. They're hitting it out the ballpark. You know, but there was just something, and I was just saying it. I think I had told this to my fiance, a couple of weeks back, where it's like he just doesn't seem right. He just doesn't seem right. But I'm like, the first thing, obviously when you're a fan, is like, okay, he's not playing good. He's got to be hurt. He's got to be hurt. And for the most part, I try to, eliminate that out from my mind and just be like, you know what, it's just a bad stretch, and these players are human. Maybe it's something that he's dealing with mentally off the field. We don't know, but the fact that the news came out today about him playing pretty much the whole entire year with a partially torn labrum, it's just really incomprehensible when it comes to Aaron Boone's decision making, and that's pretty much what's been the knock on Aaron Boone for the past 2 or 3 years as far as his decision making process goes. But again, we'll see what happens. We'll see. Hopefully, it is a situation where Volpe does respond well to the cortisone shot, and listen, we'll see. But obviously, with him and Judge right off the back, they're not going to be 100% this year. You've seen it from Judge when he plays right field. There hasn't been a throw where you can just see him just rip it. And I think, from a caution standpoint, that's just Aaron Judge, protecting himself and pretty much the season. Because listen, if he goes down for any period of time right now, the season's over for the Yankees. And if they do get in, if they do get into the playoffs, it's just going to be a gentleman's appearance where it's going to be like hi and bye. So yeah, so that's pretty much what it's going to be for the Yankees, and we'll see if they can get back on track tonight at the stadium, 7 o'clock start to that game. So with that, we're going to get into some football. We're going to start with the Giants. Wow. Now, I almost appeared to be like Boo Boo the Fool because, I made some comments about the Giants perhaps making the playoffs, considering all the distractions that Washington had. It seems like teams that win the Super Bowl, they don't appear to be as sharp as they were during their Super Bowl winning year. And obviously, we've seen the drama that unfolded with the Dallas Cowboys, which ultimately led to the departure of Michael Parsons going to the Green Bay Packers. So there was part of me that was like, you know what? Because I think this defense could be a top 10 defense, and I still stand by that, it's easy to just look at something at the one game and be like, yeah, they're going to be, they're going to be horrible. But Listen, it's so easy to blame it on a 37-year-old, 36, 37-year-old of Russell Westbrook. You know, their line is just horrible. Their offensive line is so dreadful. It's just hard to watch. And I looked at the game. I watched uh, a few minutes of it, and it's just like, yeah, these guys can't move the ball down the field. And you know, Russell Wilson was pretty much running for his life the whole damn game. Granted, your top offensive player on the line, Andrew Thomas, he's out. He's still working himself back from the offseason foot surgery he had last year. So hopefully, you know, they'll get back. They'll get him back in the fold, and hopefully he'll add some sort of stability within that offensive line because right now they just look like a joke. And it's so easy to run off Russell Wilson and just say, hey, well, you know what? Put the kid in, put the kid in, put the kid in, put Jackson Dart in. Listen, eventually that's going to happen. I just feel like we can't just push the gun. We can't just jump the gun. As far it looked bad. Listen, they scored 2 field goals the entire game. It looked bad. There was also a negative interaction between Coach Dable and the top receiver Malik Neighbors, and obviously you don't want to see that. Um, you know, Neighbors, came out yesterday, the day before, and put some sort of enlightenment in the situation. About his reaction towards towards the middle of the game, where it appeared that him and Dable had a disagreement. And listen, he came up and said, "Listen, I had 12 targets. I what am I going to complain about?" But I think when you're a competitor in any sort of sports, just in life in general, but primarily sports, frustration kicks in. What your talents are capable of, and it's all about getting the ball to you and you know potentially making a play, for the team, especially a team that struggled on offense like the Giants have. It was really, 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 really tough to watch them play and ultimately fall to the Washington Commanders. Obviously, going into that game, they weren't the favorites, rightfully so. The Commanders were arguably one of the best teams in the NFC. So yeah, it's just really, really bad. And we'll see. I guess I'm assuming with the quarterback situation, this is going to be monitored in a week by week basis. The team had a total of 231 yards. Obviously, Russell Wilson's stats were 17 to 27, I believe, for 168 yards, 63 on the ground. But listen, they just really didn't play good. And what was supposed to be a strong point wasn't a strong point the first game. Would be the defense, preferably the front four. The Giants defense gave a total of 220 rushing yards on 32 attempts. So again, there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up with this Giants team. And I'll tell you one thing, again, I enjoy watching Russell Wilson, um, obviously, Breeze and Matt Manning and Wilson for the most part. Rodgers too. No salt to Rodgers. He came into his former stomping grounds and just lit us up for 4 touchdowns. And he pretty much looked like the Rodgers of old. I don't think he's that anymore, but he sure looked damn good this past Sunday. So no knock on him. But again, you can put Russell Westbrook in that category of good quarterbacks that I grew up watching, But is his time over? I'm still it's still up in the air. But I'll tell you one thing, and you guys can mark my words. You can mark it on the calendar, September 11th, 2025. If the Giants play like this, the way they did in Washington, you will not see Russell Wilson and Brian Dable lead anything moving forward by week 5. I'm going on a limb. I'm going on a limb right now because you know I feel for the most part you got to give as listen. It's one thing to look good in preseason and show that okay maybe the speed of the pro football, you know, he finds it easier as pertaining to Jackson Dart. But again, it's preseason. Not all the starters are gonna play. Now it's big time. Now you're gonna have these guys playing damn near every snap. You know, so I want to give it a few games. To be honest with you, if it continues to be the way it did last Sunday, I don't even think it'll last 5 games. But truthfully speaking, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the trigger within 3 games. But again, we all know that Jackson Dart obviously was drafted for a reason. He's going to be the quarterback of the future for the New York Giants. Um, Obviously, the formula that the Giants have had set for him is to sit back, watch a veteran quarterback who's probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. Do his thing, at least find a way to keep the offense into games and just have the defense do what they're supposed to be doing with the defense that they have, as far as the top tier names they have on the other side of the ball. But again, if this gets worse, I think it's safe to say that as far as starting, because I still believe Russell Wilson could be, a beneficiary as far as a quarterback in the league. But if he has a performance, because listen, we talk about the offensive and the line, but he just, him in general, he made some really really bad decisions. Obviously, those decisions, catapulted with him not having time to throw the ball, and him running for his life most of the game. But still, there were certain plays that I saw where you could see him just pivot, you could see him just struggling, and you can't have that. And listen, Giants fan, New York football fans, we've been dying for winners. It just seems like forever in the day. I don't think I had hair on my beard the last time they were even, you know, effective or just reliable when it comes to their respective divisions. But I do think if this team plays that bad like they did, mark my words, and I'm going to repeat it again, Dable and Wilson will be out. Wilson will be a backup to Jackson Dart, and I think right now Dable's in the hot seat. But if it gets bad, where it starts spilling out to the locker room, it's already spilling out on the bench, on the sidelines. So that's pretty much step one to a disgruntled team. Obviously, whenever these things come out, it's always something that comes out, whether it's off the field, whether it's in the locker room. When you see something like that, something follows that. Whether it's something off the field, one of the players did something, a bonehead move, or there was a players only meeting, or a shouting match between a coach and a player. But again, you know, let's not jump into conclusions. It's so easy to do that. I get it after one game. I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Giant fan. But again, I think for Jackson Dart's sake, just him having the time to learn the playbook more, week 2, week 3, if you don't like what you see by week 3, week 4, make the trigger, pull the trigger. I'm hoping that the Giants could at least play some sort of decent football where, it's decent but not decent enough, and then they'll be able to they'll go and make the move during their 5th game of the year. But obviously, we'll see how that unfolds as far as the Giants go. As far as the Jets go, well, listen, I've been saying it for as long as I've been alive, and I'm pretty sure you've seen it on tabloids everywhere. It's the same old Jets. There were some positives. Again, me personally, I'm not I guess yay and nay when it comes to moral wins. Um, but at this part, I'm just tired of saying that as a Jet fan. We're just tired of saying the whole moral wins point. It's almost getting, tiring at this point. Um, First time in a game that they did not punt in the first half since 1991, which is insane to think about it. I was three, but to put a ball in their perform, they played well. But I think the one thing that I like so far during this Aaron Glenn's head coach regime is that he's not afraid to hold people accountable. And he said the one thing that we cannot tolerate are turnovers, because ultimately turnovers dictate the outcome of the game. And unfortunately, it was one of my favorites, Xavier Gibson. He had a crucial fumble during the game against the Steelers, and the Steelers countered and was able to score during that drive. And uh, Monday, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, the Jets announced that they have released Xavier Gibson. He was picked up by the Giants, ironically, today off waivers. So again, they played well. If you're a Jets fan, you gotta like. Well, the offense is pretty damn good. They had 394 yards of total offense, which is insane. 182 yards coming with the run, and that's one thing that Aaron Glenn said in his introductory conference, is that he wants to be a team that you know is known for running the ball and just solidify that ground and pound the meter. Something that the Jets didn't have last year. I think they ran the ball fourth least in the league last year. I'm not sure. I have to look that up, but I think I came across a statistic like that. So yeah. And again, Justin Fields. I can't say enough about Justin Fields. I've never really been high on Justin Fields. I guess that has to stem with what I saw during his time in Chicago. But again, I think during his time in Chicago, he had an offensive coordinator every damn year. So it's like, all right, well, what do you expect? He doesn't have anything consistent. Now, on the flip side, what I saw in Pittsburgh last year with him, he went 4-2 during his time as a starting quarterback before Pittsburgh ultimately went with Russell Wilson for the rest of the year. But listen, if he can be like the way he was this past Sunday, I'm not gonna listen. I'm gonna set it straight right now. You got to be delusional as a Jet fan if you think the Jets are going to make the playoffs. There's too many strong powerhouse teams in the AFC to begin with. Obviously, you set the tone with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills, who are in the AFC East division, are going to be atop there. I think if they stay healthy, it wouldn't be surprised to see the Buffalo Bills represent the AFC this year. And you got a lot of good powerhouse teams there, man. So I think the one thing and I said it on last week's podcast, you want to see change, and this goes for Giants fans too. Obviously you got a new coach, you got a new general manager, you got a new quarterback. You want to see the beginning to change. I think Jets fans, they want to ultimately see the culture shock where they just go on this 4-game stretch where they just seem like unbeatable. I don't know if you're going to see that right now. And again, it's kind of unfair to expect that right now. I don't know if the Giants have the roster to do something like that, but the most important thing is you want to see whether Justin Fields was worth the 2-year, $40 million contract that the Jets dished out to him in the offseason. His first game in MetLife Stadium, he went 16 of 22 for 218 yards, 48 rushing yards. He threw a touchdown. He also rushed for 2 touchdowns. So if you really look at that's a pretty damn good debut. It's a pretty damn good debut. But again, it's all about consistency when you talk about the Jets. Obviously, that defense, it has its times where they can look really lethargic, and there's times where they just look like the a complete juggernaut on defense. Led by Sauce Gardner, Quinton Williams and Quincy Williams. Jermaine Johnson is back from the Achilles injury, and Will McDonald, who seems like he'll hopefully he'll be able to come to his own after a great year last year. So again, we'll see what happens with the Jets moving forward. But I think as a Jet, first and foremost, I don't think any Jet fan expected the Jets to throw up 32 points on an opening day. I don't. We'll be fooling ourselves if we thought that, because I for sure didn't see that coming. I for sure didn't see that coming. I do see Pittsburgh, depending on the health of Aaron Rodgers. I do see Pittsburgh perhaps contending for one of those wild card spots in the AFC. Um, I don't know. I don't necessarily see them winning the North. I think Baltimore will ultimately come out of the North, but it doesn't say that Pittsburgh, you know, is not going to give Baltimore a run for their money. So, and I think Cincinnati is in that same division too. And again, Cincinnati pretty much did everything they can to keep those players intact for Joe Burrow. So to me, for the Bengals, this is Joe Burrow's year to win. You got your top receivers signed up and whatnot. You got your top defensive player in Trey Hendrickson signed at least for this year. So it's pretty much go time for the Bengals. But to put this in a bow, satisfied with the Jets did, and hopefully, we'll see if they can feed off of that. They got a very very good Buffalo team that I just reiterated that is probably gonna um, well, in my opinion, I got them coming out of the AFC. It seems like a foregone conclusion that they'll win the East. Um, I had Miami in second, but after what I saw last Sunday from them, I don't know. The Jets just might be the worst second place team in the league if Miami continues to do what they're doing. But again, all good stuff, all promising stuff. Um, and we'll see what our New York sports teams have in store for us next week. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you guys so much for your ongoing support every episode, every week. Quick birthday shout out to my dad. Happy birthday, Dad. My dad has a birthday this coming Saturday, so we're going to do it right for him. And tune in to you guys are looking for some football. You can't wait till Sunday. Pretty damn good game tonight with the Washington Commanders heading to Green Bay to face the Green Bay Packers. So that's a pretty good one. And obviously, you got the Mets and the Phillies, and you got the Yankees and the Tigers for you guys to look at tonight. Also, big, huge boxing fight this weekend. Speaking of Saturday, September 13th, live from Riyadh, you have arguably two of the top tier boxers in the boxing game today with Canelo Alvarez going up against Terrence Bud Crawford. Terrence Bud Crawford has been a favorite of mine for many, many years alongside with Pacquiao. So I'm going to go with Crawford to win by split decision. I think it's going to be a very close fight and a very exciting one. And let's just face it, boxing needs something exciting to begin with. But thank you guys for joining Sports Talk with Eddie, presented by Our Time Press. And I'll see you guys in the next one.